Am I the a-hole for telling my wife the newborn is her responsibility and don't bother about it when she wanted a nap? My wife and I are currently separated, and we're going through a tough period in our marriage. We've been together for over a decade, and now we're in a situation where we've agreed to separate, but we have to wait for 12 months before we can officially divorce. It's a complicated time, and I'm trying my best to navigate the emotions and responsibilities that come with it, but it's not easy. There's a lot of pain, and it's made even harder by the fact that she was meant to move out, but she's having trouble finding a place nearby. We both agreed that the kids should have access to both of us equally, and we wanted to make sure that they don't have to be uprooted from their environment, so we decided that custody would be 50-50. But until she can find a place, we're still living in the same house, and the tension is palpable. The reason for our divorce is something that has been brewing for a long time, but I never saw it coming in this way. My wife's twin sister asked her to be a surrogate for them, and at first, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Apparently, the idea was that since they were twins, my wife was the best option to carry their child. My wife and her twin sister, along with her brother-in-law, made this decision behind my back. They had been planning it for weeks without telling me anything. I found out only after they had made all the arrangements. It felt like a betrayal on so many levels. I'm sure some people might say I should have been more understanding, but the way they went about it was deceitful. They didn't even have the decency to include me in the conversation from the start. When my wife finally told me, it wasn't like she was seeking my opinion or input. Instead, she said, "This is my body, my choice, and you have zero say. Either support me or we can divorce." Those words still sting when I think about them. It wasn't as blunt as that, of course, but the longer version of the conversation still pisses me off. I wasn't given the opportunity to voice my feelings, and it felt like a decision had already been made, with me being an afterthought. I told her right then and there that if she went through with it, we would get divorced. It wasn't a decision I took lightly, but I couldn't bring myself to support something that felt so wrong to me. For months later, she told me she was pregnant, and I filed for divorce just 2 days after that. The decision came as a shock to everyone, including her family. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law did everything in their power to shame and guilt me into changing my mind, but I stood firm. I told them that if they wanted my wife to have a baby for them, they were the ones who had to take responsibility. This wasn't something I could be a part of anymore. During the pregnancy, things didn't get any easier. My wife acted like I was supposed to step up and act like I had in previous pregnancies. She would get upset when I told her, "If you want 3 a.m. burgers, call your sister." For some reason, this made me out to be the bad guy. I didn't expect to be treated like her emotional support when she was making decisions without me. It only got worse from there. She even called my mother to complain about how I wasn't stepping up, and my mom pointed out, quite bluntly, that my wife was pregnant with another man's child. That didn't go over well, and it was just another example of how the entire situation was breaking us apart. The situation took another drastic turn when my wife's twin sister was involved in a car accident just 2 days before my wife gave birth. Her sister is currently in intensive care, and her husband hasn't left her side. It's a horrible situation, and I feel sympathy for them. But it's also put even more strain on my already fragile relationship with my wife. Since the accident, my wife has acted as if I shouldn't be the father to our children anymore, that her brother-in-law and sister-in-law should take over as the parental figures. She even called me a heartless monster when I refused to go with her to the delivery room. I'm not sure what she expected from me, but I just couldn't be part of this family dynamic anymore. My wife has also demanded that I help with the baby during the night, even though she's always made excuses for her brother-in-law, the baby's biological father, when it comes to taking responsibility for his child. I told her multiple times, call the child's father. He's the one who should be taking care of and bonding with his kid. I don't believe it's my responsibility to step in when he should be doing it. I've always believed that as parents, no matter how hard life gets, we still need to look after our kids. But my wife always made excuses for her brother-in-law, saying he was too busy or overwhelmed. I got tired of it. Now I just ignore her when she brings it up. Today, I had the day off work, and my wife asked me if I could watch the baby for a few hours while she napped and showered. I was tired and just wanted to relax, so I said no. She started crying, saying that she was sorry for going against me with the surrogacy and that she didn't want to get divorced. She said she desperately needed me to take the baby for just an hour, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I felt like everything was on her terms, and it was never about what I needed or wanted. So I repeated, "Why don't you call your brother-in-law?" She didn't answer, just stared at me. Then I said, "The newborn is your responsibility. Don't bother me about it again, and I suggest you start looking harder for a new place to live." I don't know why I said that last part, but it felt like a breaking point. I can't keep living in this toxic environment. She started screaming at me, calling me names, and telling me that karma would get me. Then, she packed a bag and left with the baby. I'm guessing she went to her mother's house, because her family and her sister's husband have been calling me all day. I can't escape it. Everyone's trying to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself, but I just can't do it anymore. So here I am, alone with my thoughts. I've been reflecting on everything, and I still don't know if I did the right thing. I'm angry, hurt, and exhausted from this whole ordeal. I wonder if there's something I could have done differently, but I also know that the way things were going, it was unsustainable. I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness and well-being just to please everyone else. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that the newborn is her responsibility and not bothering me about it? I've been trying to stand my ground, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm just being cruel. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I can't keep enabling this behavior. It's become clear that I need to start thinking about myself and my kids' future, and not just bend over backward for people who don't respect me.